Jeff, welcome back to Late Night in the Midlands. It's a pleasure to actually have you here. We had
Michael,
some issues last time.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, you bet. So what have you been up to? What's new?
Well, I am still pursuing the career as a novelist. I'm happy to announce I recently, I'm working on a trilogy. That's 2 of the 3 books have come out, and the next one is due later this summer. So things are going well.
Oh, good. So, well, let's get into this a little bit. Get into your background and your work. What got you going? I mean, what drove you to this? To write about these things and to research these subjects?
Well, I've been interested in paranormal subjects ever since I was a kid, and I basically read about them for a long time. And when I began to pursue a career as a writer, I really didn't know what I wanted to write about. But you go back to what your interests are. What kind of things did you find fascinating when you were younger? And so I was just kind of gravitated towards the paranormal. And so as I write each one of these books, it allows me to do a lot of research into areas that I knew a little bit about, but then learned a lot more about as I did the research. And one book led to the next. And it's been a lot of fun ever since, just trying to look at a different perspective on the paranormal. I consider myself someone who likes to ask the hard questions that a lot of believers don't like to be asked, and try to find other alternative answers for things. And there's not a lot of people out there who are playing both sides like that.
Right. And and I like that. That's what needs to be done. The hard questions have to be answered. Now, why is it so mysterious, this whole the ghost, the what happens after we die? I mean, nobody's ever come back and that we could prove to everybody and told us what happens. So why is you suppose such a mystery? Why aren't humans just programmed to know this? I wonder.
Well, I don't know. I think it's always this the thought of our own mortality is kind of a scary and fascinating subject to us at the same time, and it's something that we all share as human beings. Is one day we will be, finding out for ourselves what happens. And I'm a person that I don't want to wait until I die to find out. I want to know, at least have some idea of what might happen before then. And so I think there are things that do give us some clues. And if a person takes the time to really look at them, they can discover a lot of things about what might be awaiting us on the other side.
Absolutely. I've talked about this several times on this show. I mean, I had my own experiences that have convinced me that there's definitely another side to this story we call life. But, a lot of people haven't. And some people have, but they brush it off. They kind of debunk it themselves, and quickly, because they just don't want to believe in some of this stuff. And for me, it's more than just believing it. Believing it was one thing, but knowing it to be fact, really a whole nother ball game. And what type of evidence? I mean, what was the best evidence that you have run across as far as there being something on the other side, and even reincarnation? Maybe explain that a little bit.
Well, there's a number of ways to approach this. There's ghosts. I think the evidence for the paranormal is very strong if you take it collectively. I also had so many people in my life who had experiences with the paranormal. People just said, they don't talk about it unless you get them off by themselves and say, I remember years ago this happened. And so not only that, but from a scientific standpoint, I couldn't see why people were so quick to dismiss the idea that there was more after death, since we're made out of energy, and energy can't be destroyed. It just changes form. So from a scientific standpoint, it made sense rationally. Anecdotally, I knew a lot of people who had encounters or experiences with the other side. And then finally, the third part of that was reincarnation. I knew I had experiences from my own life that made me wonder why I had the interests as a young man that I had in terms of the military. Germany, things like that. And I started reading a little bit about reincarnation, and I did a hypnosis when I was put under, and went back to explore some past lives. And all of these things cumulatively convinced me that life is just one experience among many that we have as part of being human, and not the only one. So there's a lot going on out there, and all of it together tells me that there's a lot to come after we go too.
Now, what does Scripture say about reincarnation? I believe that there's some religions that believe in it, and others that don't. Can we pull anything out of there that might support reincarnation?
Well, it's interesting. In my research, I found out that the early church, especially the Gnostic churches, did believe in reincarnation. It was a major element of their belief system. And then there was, of course, this battle between them and the more traditional church, and the Gnostics lost. So all references to reincarnation were largely purged from religious texts after that. Even though we still see some inklings of it here and there. Remember when Jesus was walking the earth, people said he is Elijah, come back. And so there was always these little hints that reincarnation is thought had made its way into even the Jewish beliefs of the time. And you really don't hear that much. It was very forcefully repressed by the church at large, because if you incorporate reincarnation into your theology, then there's not a one decision you have to make, either heaven or hell, believe it or not. You come back again and again, and that's obviously not going to work if you're trying to convince people they need to make a decision for Christ today. Because they can say, well, why can't I just wait for another time when it's more interest to me? And so you can understand why they would want to repress it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess there's quite a few people on this planet who, if they knew for sure that they could just end it now and come back and start over, per se, then they might actually take that road. And, my wife and I were talking about that last night. And I told her, I just want to know. I want the answers. I want to know how we got here, why we're here, who exactly is God, what is all this? What's the meaning of it all? And she asked me if I thought I could handle it. And I don't know if I could or not. I think I can. I feel like I could. I mean, I'm researching it. I want to know. So, I want to know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the answer is not as far away as you think. Some people are looking for some sort of extraordinary experience, to get the answer. And a lot of time it's actually within yourself. You just kind of get a sense that you're here temporarily, and there's more to it, and that you've got a reason for being here. And once you understand what that reason for being is, it makes life change a lot. All of a sudden, you're not just kind of wandering around wondering what to do next. You actually understand your purpose, and that everybody has a role to play in our spiritual development and evolution. And it makes for a very different perspective on life.
And I kind of wonder as to if we're going to have to come back again. I mean, why do we have to leave in the first place? These are questions that I'd really like to get answers to. And, what happens to the people who have been horribly evil their whole lives? I mean, is there a different outcome for them? And, those kind of things. And why do we have ghosts? I mean, how come they haven't gone into the recycling period, if you will? I mean, do we have any answers for any of that, or any theories at least?
Well, yeah, absolutely. As far as ghosts go, I believe that you're basically made up of a soul, and when you come into the world, into the flesh, you generate a personality along with a body. So those are your way of experiencing time and space. That's how you have experiences. Once you die, I believe that all returns back to the realm of spirit again. However, in some people, for whatever reason, that personality lingers on. Usually some place that's familiar to them, that they feel comfortable at. They have trouble accepting the fact that they're dead. They have trouble, or maybe they're afraid of God. They think they're going to be judged, and so they linger. And so basically what a ghost is just a personality, disembodied personality that's stuck. It just doesn't want to move on, and it'll stay there for a while. It could be a few months, a few years, a few decades, even centuries. But eventually the personality will eventually move on and move into its next incarnation. And to me, that always made the most sense. I can understand people having that attitude where I don't want to move on. I want to stay in my house. I want to be around familiar things. And it can be scary. The unknown is a scary thing. And that's where faith comes in. You just have to have faith that God knows what he's doing and that things will work out in the end.
And you know, I've sometimes said this to some of my more religious friends is, you know, if God would just show his face in the sky, you know, this planet would come to a standstill quick. However, I think nowadays people would swear the government put an apparition up there, some kind of hologram. So I don't know if that would even work. No.
Sometimes even seeing is not believing. But spirituality tells us it's actually believing is seeing. It kind of works opposite. It's as you have faith and you move forward that you begin to perceive God in people, in things around you, in nature, and that's what we miss. We're trying to have some kind of an experience, but we miss the fact that life is an experience, and it's around us all the time. And sometimes we just have to stop and pay attention. Otherwise, we miss it.
Right. I agree. And, you know, I also wonder about, you know, there's spirits that can come back. I mean, people will get down in their life, maybe hit rock bottom, and there's somebody who had passed away, who was close to them, will come back and help them. And, you know, but then there's other people who will never get visited no matter what happens. And, you know, you got to wonder, is there rules? Is there, I mean, you know, what goes on the other side? I mean, who makes the rules? Why can some spirits come back and others cannot? Like I had an experience. I hit rock bottom years ago, and my mother came back to me. And, you know, and I know a lot of people say it could have been a dream, it could have been this, but there was confirmation to that. So, you know, I find it amazing, and that's an experience that I had that tells me, oh, yeah, there's definitely something on the other side. But, you know, I wonder why some could come back and others cannot, and how long are they on the other side before they come back as, you know, in a new life?
Well, you've got to remember that when you're talking about the spiritual realm, you're talking about a realm of timelessness. There is no time in the spiritual realm. So it's always now. So it's not a matter that, you know, eventually they can't come back anymore because they've reincarnated. That soul can reach back to you at any point. It's just really a matter of thinking about it. I lost both my parents, and I've never had a visitation or anything. But when I think about them, I feel them very close. And that's because there is that connection that remains after death with those that we love. And there are times when we may decide that it makes sense for us to do something about it, to come into their lives and make things better. Other times I think it could be a mistake. Sometimes we just have to work things out on our own. I think from the spiritual realm, you have a better understanding of the impact of visiting someone on the other side is. And so some people just may not want to do that because they know it would be harmful. And at other times, there may be times when it really is beneficial. It's confirmation for, like you said, or to bring somebody out of a bad place. I think a lot of people don't have these experiences because they don't really believe there's anything after death. And if you don't believe there is, you're not going to look for it, and the good chance you're not going to find it. Just because those on the other side realize that you're not receptive to what they might have to tell you. So again, faith plays a role in it.
And when it does happen, they're going to have a big surprise, maybe. So, and I also, I've thought about this too. Could it be that maybe, like you said, even when we come back, when we are reincarnated, could it be that maybe when we sleep, that soul could wander off and maybe go back and visit somebody, but, our consciousness doesn't know about it, that kind of thing? I don't know. You think
absolutely. I think in deep REM sleep, a lot of times we are away from the physical, and we are kind of on that edge of the spiritual realm. And so you want to pay attention to your dreams. If you're dreaming about loved ones, you're interacting with them in a dream, people who have left you, there's a good chance that that's a message from the other side. I think it's much easier for the spiritual realm to make itself known through that format than it is by appearing as a ghost or in some other more physical way. My wife has had a number of experiences where she had lengthy conversations with her deceased parents on the other side. And they basically explained to her that, they had reconciled, they had a very bad marriage when they were alive, and that they had reconciled and that they had understood things now, and they were just keeping tabs on her, and she was going to be okay. And she would wake up feeling, just euphoric that she'd had this experience. Now, a skeptic could say, well, yeah, it was just a dream. She just had this wonderful dream that she needed some confirmation, and dismiss it. But I'm not so sure. I really think it was important for her to know that they were okay, and they told her, and when she understood that, she was fine. She was able to go on. So I leave it for the listener to decide whether that's anything to it or if that's just her imagination.
Right. Now, did she by chance describe how that conversation took place? Because in my experience, it seems like there's no words are spoken. Like telepathic. They show you stuff.
What she did is she would be back in this cabin up in the woods that her family owned when she was young, and they used to go up there a lot. And so she would suddenly find herself in that cabin, and they would be there, doing things, making dinner, whatever, the kinds, and they would look just like they did when they were alive. And she would just say, what are you doing, Mom? What's going on? And she would just tell her. I mean, it was like a conversation, just like you have a regular dream. But it was very real to her, very vivid. Even though these people have been gone for many years and the cabin itself is no longer there, this is where they would just kind of find a venue that she understood and that she was comfortable with. And that's where they would just kind of, and they didn't give her any great magical words of advice. They didn't tell her the meaning of life or anything. But it was just a very loving, affirming interaction in which they just said, hey, this is where we are, and everything's okay. And so she could go on herself.
Right. And that's amazing, too, because in my experience, it was the same thing. I had an out-of-body experience, and my mother had showed up, and she took me it's hard to even explain. She took me to the house I grew up in. I lived in this house most of my life, and, we no longer owned the house at that time, but she took me there, and we just kind of levitated above to the ceiling and watched my father and my sister, and she showed me. It's weird. It was like no words were spoken, but she told me what she wanted me to know, and they never tell you, what the meaning of life is or anything like that. It's always just, I don't know, it seems to me like they come when they know that you need them. It's like a guardian angel kind of thing. And, the things she told me were just that, this was going to get better, that's going to get better, you'll see, blah, blah, blah. And, by the next day, all these things that she was telling me would get better did. So, scientists will say, well, that was your mind just working things out in your sleep. But no, I know it was real. I got up, and I seen myself laying in that bed. And it really happened. But I can't convince nobody else of that, nor will I try. It was a blessing for me, and I'm just happy it happened. So your wife is very lucky to have had that experience.
I think Spirit has many different ways of contacting us, sometimes through dreams, sometimes through events. I believe I've been led to certain books by people on the other side. You know, you go into a store and say, what book should I read? I feel like I should be getting something, and all of a sudden some title will pop in your head, and you'll get that book off the shelf, and it turns out to be exactly what you needed at that moment. So I think the spirit realm has all kinds of different ways of helping us and communicating with us. But again, the whole key is being perceptive to it, to be open to it. Because if you close yourself off to it, it can be life can be a very tedious process that's hard for some people to get through. But once you are open to the prospect that there is more beyond, and that there is a connection between us and the other side, I think it becomes much easier to deal with the day-to-day problems and the frustrations and confusions that we go through. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, I agree with you again. I think so too. And and a lot of people say, well, I've had the atheist on my show before and I don't argue with them. I mean, they're welcome to believe whatever they wish. But what I find is a lot of people who don't believe in anything after, they just haven't had any proof of it. And some people need proof. And, I'm thankful I had mine, but I believed in it before I had that proof. And I think that if your mind's not open to it, if you don't really believe in that type of thing, I think, it might be harder to recognize. Absolutely. So.
Well, I discovered that there's two types of atheists. Those who don't believe and those who won't believe. And the difference is that one group really doesn't care whether there's an afterlife, whether there's God. They just don't really, it's not a concern to them. But the other group who will fight you about it or argue with you, they're actually looking for God. They want it to be in a certain way. They want to have that empirical proof, and that's why they go after people of faith. Because they want, give me what you have, but and if you can't, then I'm going to denigrate your belief system. But they're actually, in a way, they're actually looking for God themselves in their own way.
And you know what? I've actually seen it on the other end as well. I've seen the hardcore religious people who will, throw it at you. You gotta believe. If you don't believe, you're evil. You're the devil. You're going to burn in hell. And they just come after you. So I've seen it on both ends. And me myself, I don't care if you worship a rock, as long as you're not hurting people and you're living a decent life. Who cares? But I think a relationship with God is between you and God. And I think, for people to crucify you because of what you think or believe, that takes us back thousands of years, don't it? Let's burn the witches at the stake.
But I don't know if you're aware of this, but for 20 years I was a kind of a hardcore evangelical Christian. And I was one of those people who, believed in hell and believed you had to believe a certain thing. Now, I wasn't in people's face about it. I wasn't overly aggressive, I don't think. But I was very much involved in that whole belief system. And then about 12, 15 years ago, I began to have some experiences and some second thoughts about what I believed and began exploring other avenues. And I have come to the conclusion that God uses people of faith, uses religion as one tool among many to bring people to Him, to God. And so I still admire and respect people who believe in hardcore Christianity, but at the same time I think it's only one tool among many that Spirit has. And that's what I learned, is that you can't insist that people perceive these things the way you do, because we all have different backgrounds and experiences. So God is going to appeal to people in different ways. To some people it is through religion, through novella candles, through the sacraments, through the Quran, through the Bible. To other people it's going to be in other ways, even through nature, even through secular outlets. So don't ever sell God short on how many different ways he has of getting your attention. Just depends on what you're prepared to listen to.
Oh, absolutely. Very well said. Very well said. And again, I don't criticize anybody for what they believe or don't believe. I have all sorts of guests and different people who come on this show, and I don't agree with everybody, but, I'm interested in what they're thinking about, how they're thinking about it, why they think that way. Because who knows? Maybe they'll give me another avenue I want to look down. I don't know. So it is what it is. But we have a call here, and I'm going to go ahead and take that call. We've got Rascala. Rascala, welcome aboard, my friend.
Hello, Michael. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Rascala, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well, my friend. Very interesting what you got to say tonight, and I'm very interested as well. Wanted to ask you, you had mentioned that you were an evangelical Christian earlier. I also was, I still believe that I am born again, spirit-filled. I'm not as critical as others might be of how you can get to talk to God or not. I'm more open about it, very similar to what you just said. So that was very refreshing to hear that. In your opinion and in your experience, the reincarnation, what have, I'm trying to figure out how to put it in words where it makes sense. Let me give it to you in my opinion, and then you can critique that, because I can't figure out how to say it where it comes out making sense.
I believe that I have that problem myself. Go ahead.
That's what happens when I get near Michael.
Right.
Anyway, I believe we do know that we were living at a former time when we were young. I think that all those memories are available to us when we were young. And then through the course of becoming, quote, adults in our society, I think it's kind of stripped away from us for a whole lot of reasons. I don't know if you're familiar with the fluoride issue, or the pineal gland, but these are all things that allow us communication with the spirit realm. And as we grow older, and as we're kids, and we say, oh, well, I see a monster in my closet, that may very possibly be for them. They may be seeing some type of entity that's from another dimension, but because they are so young and they're so naive or innocent, I can't think of the right word, they're so open and receptive. That's the word I want to, they're so receptive that they could actually see these things that we don't. And then as they're told, oh, no, you don't see that anymore, they're told that they're kind of almost manipulated into not seeing that anymore, because when they would see that, they would be told, no, you don't see that, that's just your imagination, blah, 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 blah. And then as you get older, you've kind of shut that, almost like a muscle. You don't use that muscle anymore, so you've shut that door down, or that muscle, so to speak, and so you just go on about your life thinking that this is the way life is. Is that how you see it?
Actually, that's a lot of good points in there. The research of Dr. Ian Stevenson, who is one of the leaders in the study of reincarnation, he used to study past life memories in children, and there would be children as young as 3 or 4 years old who would talk about their other family and the other town they lived in and what they did for a living. And he researched hundreds of these cases, and he found that a lot of these children had extraordinarily remarkable memories about events, names, people, places. They could actually go to these other towns and point out, things in the town that they remembered from the last life. And then he noticed that as they grew into their teen years, they often lost these memories. They would just sort of fade. And by the time they were, 14, 15 years old, they didn't remember any of it anymore. And so I think there's something to it, that a child, an infant, has just come from the spiritual realm, and so it still has that, it's still tuned to it. And then as the child grows older into adolescence, that ability to perceive the other side fades. And you can still get this back, but you almost have to work at it. You're right, it's like a muscle that if you don't exercise it, it sort of atrophies, and it's not very useful to you anymore. And that's what I think a spiritual journey is about, is learning how to reacquire that ability to perceive the other side in different ways. And so I think you're right on there. I think that's a very valid observation, and I think it's something that can be almost supported by science. And I applaud you for coming up with it. Thank you.
Well, it's actually part of my life. It's what I remember now as I'm getting older and realizing that there's so much more than, I was going through life almost like, I don't know if it makes sense, but almost like on autopilot. Like an automatic pilot. I was just being steered in whatever way I was going to go and come. And I got to an age where I realized there's got to be more to this than what I'm being told and what I believe. And the more I would dig, the more questions there would be. And I would sincerely pray, I want answer. I want the truth. That's really what I think anybody who is of any salt of their own, what you really want is the truth. You want the no matter how it comes out, you want the truth that's going to stand before God, and unwavering truth, not what man would add to it, but what God would have you know. And that's what I pray, and eventually that stuff is coming through to me. And what I shared with you is, I remember as a child, I've shared this with Michael, I remember as a child looking up in the clouds and seeing a hand come out of the clouds. I mean, just as clear as day. It was during the day, as a matter of fact. It was a day at the beach with my parents, but I had gone back to their apartment to change my clothes because I was going to go out with my dad to go get some food. And I was looking out the window and I could see a hand, just a clear day. And as soon as I said, "Mom," that hand disappeared in a heartbeat. And I remember having vivid dreams of just weird things like I was older, but I wasn't older. It was so strange to me. And now as I'm older now, and I realize that there's more going on, and I've been meditating more, I've been getting, and I'm learning about the pineal gland and how to decalcify the pineal gland. I'm getting more and more spiritual things. I had shared with Michael one night, him and I were chatting online, and we shared something back and forth. He was talking about his mom, and I said, I see a checkerboard. And I said, "Does that mean anything?" I see a checkerboard. And Michael said, "Yeah, my mom and I used to play checkers all the time." I didn't know that. I had no way of knowing that. Yet in my mind, I saw that checkerboard. So what I revealed to you is kind of my life, what I'm going through right now. As I meditate more and try to open that spiritual gate, the pineal gland, I'm getting more. It's something that we work at. And it's one of the things when I tell people, everybody can do this. I think you said that earlier. This is not just limited to a few people. Everybody can do this. It's a matter of, in my opinion, it's a matter of it has been stolen from some of us, because in my research what I found is fluoride is a direct enemy of the pineal gland. The pineal gland is the direct gateway to the spiritual realm, and they put fluoride in everything.
Well, I guess I'll have to stop brushing my teeth then.
Oh, with fluoride, absolutely. Absolutely.
I wonder, if that's incorrect or whether that's. But yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't really thought of the physiological aspect of it. That you actually have a gland or something that helps you perceive the other side.
Absolutely, yes.
But that's an interesting avenue to explore.
That pineal gland is like a radio receiver. It's the analogy would be a radio receiver, and your ability to manipulate that is your ability to tune. Because there are different frequencies that you can get information from, and depending upon what it is that you're looking for and how accurate you want, you tune that in. And the better tuned in you are, of course, the more accurate your information is. You look into the pineal gland, you'll be amazed. I was amazed. And it's extremely important. It's repeatedly shown over the image of the pineal gland, or the symbol, I should say, the symbol of the pineal gland is shown over and over and over again, specifically in the Catholicism, in the Vatican and things like that. You'll see this big pine cone, huge pine cones, and that's the symbol of the pineal gland.
That's interesting. I've never really heard of that before. That'll be something to look into.
It's to me it is this is all part of the puzzle that you're talking about, and I think that our ability to be able to I think some people who are what we call psychic, for example, they have the ability to, for whatever reason, manipulate that gland. They're able to still their mind and then kick the gland in, and then they're able to. And the more accurate that person is, the more versatile they are with that gland. They're able to manipulate that gland.
What do you think about that, Michael?
It makes a lot of sense to me. It really does. We're up for a break, and I'll comment on it more. Rascala, if you want to stick out of the orphanage, and then they go attack, blog talk shows and try to call in because they want to make their little girlfriends giggle when they say stupid things on the air. And so I'm just letting people know in advance. You're going to get a surprise. You do that here. And you might want to go over to latenightinthe-midlands.com. And on the right-hand side, you'll notice an iPredator protected button. All I have to do, and I already have your screen names are all recorded, is give your screen name to the iPredator. iPredator will then trace back who you are, and we'll take it from there. So just letting you know, we're not like a lot of these other shows that'll entertain your stupidity. We're not going to do that. So now that I've got that off my chest, we'll get back to it. Again, the call-in number is 347-989-1012. You got to press 1 so we know you want to get on the air. You can also call in using Skype, and we'll get back to it here with Jeff. And Rascala, you're back with us as well, my friend. And, I think you made a great point there, Rascala, when you were speaking of this. You said that, different things and chemicals that we put into our bodies could affect our perception. Is that what you were saying? Rascala? Hello, Rascala.
Okay, I'm sorry. I muted my mic because I had my son's dog was in here barking. But you're absolutely correct, yes. What happens, especially about the pineal gland, or the pineal gland, some people call it the pineal gland, has been shown to be the spiritual gateway. And if you do something to damage that, then what you've done is you've damaged your ability to be spiritually aware or spiritually communicate. And I believe, it's just my personal opinion, but I believe that when these people were selling us fluoride for many, many years and telling us it was great for our teeth, where now we have this new problem. I don't know if you've heard about the new problem that's called fluorosis, where you get too much fluoride, and it's literally eating into people's teeth. Well, if it's eating into people's teeth, what's it doing to the inside of your body? But that's a whole different story. So I think that these people who sold the fluoride knew doggone well up front what they were doing. They were getting rid of their trash, and they were killing two birds with one stone. They were dumbing down the population. I mean, how many times have you heard the fluoride dumbs down people? And that's all part of the process.
Yeah, I believe so too. And I also like the point you made about the kids. I think that's a great point. When you're a child, and I'm fortunate that my parents didn't tell me, no, that's not true. You're imagining it. They would sit me down. They'd want to hear about it. If I felt something funny was going on.
Well,
yeah.
I think as children, this is all about when you talk like you had a Mark Anthony on last night. Right? Was it last night? Yeah, I think it was last night.
Yes.
So you had Mark. If you ever ask Mark Anthony, or if you ever ask Sandy Athi, or if you ever ask Colleen, I think they'll all agree it's about vibrations and your ability to receive frequencies is the best way I can put it. It's all done through the vibration of your body and your ability to still your mind. Between the combination of those is when you start getting messages. I mean, if anybody has ever, quote, daydreamed and then thought about somebody, and then, like, within a short time, sometimes within a few minutes, sometimes within an hour, sometimes within a day, and you hadn't heard from this person in a very long time, all of a sudden, there they are on the phone calling you. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Jeff, what do you say we take another call here and see how it goes? Okay, so we've got Joe in New York. Joe, you are on Late Night in the Midlands.
Hey guys, how's it going?
All right, how are you?
I'm doing good. I have a video. When I'm practicing Wicca, and as we know, it was midsummer solstice, so I decided to do a ritual, and I got my cell phone and placed it and recorded it. And a little after playing back the video, I noticed what appears to be an orb, and I just need somebody that's well experienced in this field to look at the video and verify what it is. And I posted a link to that video in the chat room. So, but yeah, I was kind of
okay. Did you have a specific question for the guest by any chance, or?
No, I was just, calling in, trying to get some help to figure out what this is. Because I think it's an orb, but I'm not sure. I've showed it to a couple of people. They think it's stuff. I want somebody who's...
Nope, did we lose him? Oh, no, there he is. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, well. So, Jeff, what do you think orbs are? And apparently he's got this link put up in the Blog Talk chat room. So if anyone wants to go check it out, go ahead. But, Jeff, orbs?
Well, I have people send me photographs quite often of what they think is paranormal activity, ever since I wrote The Case for Ghosts. And, in fact, I get usually a picture or two a day. And I have for the last 4 or 5 years. So I have quite a collection on my website, if anyone wants to check it out. I have pictures that I think are likely to be real ghosts. I have pictures of anomalies, things that people mistake for ghosts. And I have pictures of hoaxes that people have sent me over the years, things like that. So orbs is an interesting question. There's a couple of different thoughts. One is that they are bits of dust, particles, insects in front of the lens, and that's a valid concern. You have to be very careful about what's in front of the lens when you shoot a picture, especially nowadays with kind of cameras we have, where you just kind of point and shoot. You don't really take much time to focus or really know what you're doing, and it's quite easy to get an anomaly like an orb. That is just a bit of dust. On the other hand, I've also seen some orbs that I thought were much more interesting and less easy to explain. Certainly, once you have eliminated a lot of different thoughts about what it is, then you're left with the possibility that there are entities that can appear in that form, the orb being essentially either a manifestation of spirit in its most basic geometric form, or it's some other kind of supernatural entity that is just takes on that appearance for short periods of time. I think there's a lot of research that needs to be done on orbs before we can definitely say one way or the other. I would say that probably 95% of orb pictures are just dust particles, but there are those handful that make you scratch your head and wonder if there's something more going on here.
Yeah. What do you think, Rascala? Rascala must be muted. But yeah, I agree with you, Jeff. I think it's the same ball game. I think I don't put too much into orbs myself because it's hard to tell if it is just a spectacle of dust or some kind of reflection of some sort. But but that's not to say that some orbs are not spirits. I mean, it's hard to say. I've seen a lot of videos. I've had a lot of pictures sent to me, and I don't know. It's just like everything else. Even UFO pictures. Are they real? What people are sending me, or are they photoshopping them? While I know this stuff is true, that's not to say every picture or every video is true. Rascala, you back now?
Oh yeah, the dog snuck in on me. I'm watching this video to see what he's talking about. I'm actually watching the video he was mentioning to you.
Okay.
But I really don't see anything.
No.
Not yet.
A lot of people, they kind of want to see something very badly, and so they will, they will see things in pictures that I don't see at all. I'll actually write back and say, I don't see anything in the picture, and I've done everything I can to, lighten it, contrast everything, and they're like, oh no, it's definitely the face of my grandma holding her cat. No, well, okay, if you believe it is, then that's fine. So, you always got to take that with a grain of salt. And then there's the hoaxing people out there who like to see if they can fool you. And some of them are very clever at it. So, it really is kind of a hodgepodge when you're dealing with the paranormal. You get a lot of very sincere people and a lot of people that you just think maybe their imagination gets the best of them.
And it's a very easy thing to do.
Oh, it's very, very easy. And nobody thinks they're susceptible to it, but they all are. We all are. We're all capable of being
absolutely
fooled.
correct. That's right. There's another aspect to this that I haven't brought up, and I don't know if you're aware of as well. This physiological thing with regard to like the fluoride. We're also bombarded every day with radio energy, with all kinds of radio waves, whether it's from an AM radio, an FM radio, a cell phone radio. We're constantly bombarded, wireless networks, and these are all detrimental to our ability to be able to have a constant communication with the spirit realm.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. And guys, I want to set an example here for some of these clowns who keep calling in. 215-742-0710. Again, that number is 215-742-0710. And so there's one of our crank callers. So go ahead, everyone, give them hell.
I feel sorry for
that's how I roll.
The last time that happened, you know what happened the last time that happened, Michael. I think the guy was begging for mercy before it was all over.
Oh, he absolutely was. If you want like 20,000 people calling you all night and through the next few days, go ahead. Call in. We're definitely will take down your number and be glad to give it to everybody. I just, I don't have time to babysit, and it's just ridiculous. But
it's a lot more serious than This is no joking matter. People, inevitably, each and every one of us is going to find the answer to this, and this is not something you can run away with or right from. So either you talk about it now, or you just, you'll talk about it sometime, because nobody can get away from this. And there's going to be a time when each of us, every one of us, is going to experience this.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff, I've got a question from the Late Night in the Midlands chat room. And Daisy asked if I could ask you, would you be able to discuss what we as souls do in between lives? And could you talk about ways we can tune into our own past lives? Good question.
Yeah, those are a couple of really good questions. Obviously, anything I say is going to be my opinion, because I can't prove any of this. But my belief, personal belief, is that in between lives, the soul goes through a period of introspection, of lessons learned. What did you get from the last experience? And it's given an opportunity to make decisions about what it wants to experience next, what gender it wants to come back as, maybe what country, what kind of experiences it wants to have. If a soul wants to learn compassion or something, it's going to want to come into a particular different, maybe a different place and time than a soul that is wanting to experience forgiveness. So I think that that's really what's going on in between lives. Again, remember, in between lives is a time of timelessness. So it's not like you're sitting around, for 20 years thinking about what you're going to do next. You have all eternity to decide, and you can come right back in a day after you die, or 20 years after you die, or any time. As far as remembering past lives, you have to kind of go with your intuition on that a lot of times. What kinds of things interest you, and why do they interest you? For example, some people might have a real interest in the country of France, even though they've never been there. But they're really into that country, and they want to know everything there is to know about it. that could be a sign that you lived in that country at one time, and you're just remembering that time when you lived there. And so any kinds of things like that it also can be negative. It can be phobias, things that you're frightened of for no particular reason, can also be indicative of a past life. I noticed that once I had undergone my past life regression, after that, I was able to recall events from that life almost naturally without having to be hypnotized. And I thought that was interesting because you would just get these little vignettes of a life, little snippets of memory, much like you have in your own life now, where you just remember events from years ago, just little bits and pieces of it. And so it seems like once I got hypnotized, that opened those floodgates, and I was able to perceive some of these events kind of quite naturally sometimes.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
I'm trying to remember this man's name. It's Dick or Richard Sethson.
Oh.
No, not Jeff. I remember Jeff. No, there's a man who I was going to ask you if you knew who this man was, and for the life of me, I can't think of it. He does past life regression hypnotherapy, and I think his first name I think is Dick or Richard. I don't recall, and his last name. Oh my gosh, I can see it in my mind, and I can't. Oh, that makes me crazy.
Don't you hate that?
Oh, I'll figure it out here. Do you know of anybody like that, Jeff?
Well, actually, I have a very good friend who's a hypnotherapist, and he's the one who put me under. He also did several other people and let me observe because I was doing research for my book.
Uh-huh.
And so there's actually a number of people out there that are qualified to do this. Just make sure that if you're going to do this, that this person is certified, board certified. There are people out there who have read a book about hypnosis and they think they're a hypnotist, and they can really mess you up. You also have to be careful that you're not trying to. There's people who have fantasy-prone personalities, and they believe they were Napoleon, and they will look for evidence of that. And so you got to be careful that you're not fooling yourself into a false reading, if you will.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Most of the past life memories I've watched, that people go through, their lives are the past lives are actually fairly ordinary. I didn't have anybody who said they were somebody famous in a past life. They were always a farmer or a worker, or they were some kind of menial job that they remembered. So if you're remembering it, everything you did was amazing, then that's a good indicator that you're probably just having some fun with your imagination.
In fantasy land.
Yeah. And the problem is that we can do that to ourselves. We don't realize that we're fooling ourselves.
Yeah. I agree, absolutely.
Absolutely. Hey, hang on a minute, guys. We've got to take a short one here.
Pretty much everything I had said. There was some things that the therapist added, that I wasn't aware of. But for the most part, I recalled it all. And that's what I found most interesting about it, was that hypnosis is not really knocking you out and then you wake up later wondering what happened. It's actually, you recall it all at the time it's happening.
I mean, I have seen videos. The man I was trying to think of, his name is Sutphen, Sutphen, Dick Sutphen, or Richard Sutphen. He's pretty big or well known in his area, and he's out in Arizona, and he has a lot of videos up. Quite some time ago, this is one of the subjects I'm very interested in, because I'm kind of caught. I don't know if this happened to you coming from a Christian background, but I'm kind of caught between, I think this is real. I think this is very real. But then what I've been taught all my life is that, no, that's taboo. You can't, no. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like you're caught in between. I really believe this is very real. I think this is really happening, and I'm praying that for more and more information that would come my way so that I would verify what it is that my belief is. Did you go through a struggle? Because, relating back to when you said you were an evangelical at one time, You know that, well, I shouldn't say, were you of the opinion that you didn't speak about these things?
Well, actually, I at one point I actually taught seminars against it. I felt that it was just a falsehood of the devil that needed to be, confronted. And what really turned me around, interesting, you've probably heard of a gentleman named the sleeping prophet, Edgar Cayce.
Yes.
Edgar Cayce would go into these deep hypnotic trances, himself, induce himself, and he would talk about past lives and all these
amazing
things.
Yeah.
Right, and the thing that was interesting about him was that he was a professing Christian all his life. He was a very strong believer. The man read through the Bible once a year. He made it kind of a habit. And I read this book about him that was written, I think, by an associate of his many years later. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Here's a man who's a strong, professing Christian who also was a believer in reincarnation. And that got me really thinking that maybe there's more to this than I understand. And as I came to that realization, I think that's where I was able to really begin to explore it honestly, rather than looking for evidence of, just to support my position. And so Cayce really kind of opened the floodgates for me. And because of him, I was capable of holding that idea in my mind. Now, eventually I realized that a lot of what I believed as a Christian was really theology that had been created by people. Bishops and church leaders over the years, and that a lot of Jesus' original teachings seem to have been sanitized or kind of reinterpreted. And as I started to read them, his parables and things, through a more open spirit, I began to see that Jesus had some very new agey ideas, especially in the Gospel of John, where you see him talking about, his prayer that they would be in him just as he was in the Father and the Father was in him. And I thought, well, that's interesting that he's kind of seeing himself as a part of God in the same way he was seeing other people as a part of God. And that's a very new agey kind of idea, which is very anathema to traditional Christianity, which teaches that there's God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, and then there's all of us who were created by them, and we're separate, kind of apart from them. But I think what Jesus was trying to say is, yes, I am the Son of God, but so are you. In other words, my divinity was inclusive. It's not exclusive. And I think we've lost that message over the centuries, and we turned Jesus into this figure, almost unapproachable figure up there, whereas he was trying to say, hey, folks, I'm just as much a part of the divine as you are. The difference between me and you is that I understand that and you don't. I perceive it and you don't. And once I understood that, it changed really my whole perspective on God and Christ and all the rest of it. So, people say, are you a Christian? I say, if you mean by that, am I a follower of Christ? Absolutely. But do you mean that there's only one way to God? Then no, I guess I'm not.
I'm right along the same line. I'm very much. I get a lot of grief from friends of mine who are Christian who say that I shouldn't be saying things like that. This is where my heart is at. I have found that by following my heart and my intuition, I'm more times right than I am wrong, and I know that this is where my, one of my main messages has always been, it's not about religion, it's about relationships. I don't think it was ever about. I don't think you could take all the religions in the world and put them all together. You still couldn't get a fingernail clip of what we call God in that. It's just so big and so vast and so huge that to put religion into it, I think it was all brought about by man to control people. That's all it was done for,
Well, none of these religious leaders that we look to, Buddha, Jesus, any of these people actually set out to begin a religion. It just sort of evolved from their teachings, from their followers are the ones who basically created the religion itself. But Jesus didn't say, I'm here to establish Christianity. And in fact, that's the last thing he wanted to do. He knew that the moment it became codified into a set theology and doctrines and dogmas and beliefs that his message was going to get lost. And that's exactly, I think, what's happened in many cases.
I agree. I totally agree. I think one of the, if you think about it, if he were alive today and giving the same message today, they would probably arrest him for domestic terrorism.
Well, he would certainly be dismissed as a kook,
Yeah.
Although I think nowadays people are growing increasingly more open to these other ideas. I see a lot more people that are willing to talk about ghosts and reincarnation and spirituality in general that weren't maybe 20, 30 years ago. So I see things moving in a good direction in terms of getting people to at least listen. Even among Christians, you're seeing a lot more openness to things like reincarnation and ghosts, and they're not just automatically dismissing it as the work of the devil, as they did, so easily many years ago.
Yeah, a little more to it than just that. It's a little easy to say, oh, it's the devil, the devil, the devil. A little more to it than just that. Of course, I don't. It's not that I don't. People have heard me repeatedly. Our administration has Luciferians in it. There's no question about it. I have no doubt in my mind. But I think my point is that many times we push it off. Oh, it's just the devil. It's just when really it could be something else. It's much more to it than just that. It's too easy to say it's just the devil.
Well, I think the devil is really just a personification of our own fear. We have created this being that we can sort of use as a symbol of the things that we fear. And a lot of people have trouble with that. They want to have a personal devil, an actual creature out there that does all these nasty things. But we do all the nasty things ourselves. We don't really need any help from a devil. Now, that being said, I do believe that there may be negative energies out there that exist on the other side. People who have died with a lot of rage and anger in them, that consciousness may still exist and may still have some very negative elements to it. And so I think that there are people who can, you've heard about people fooling around with Ouija boards.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden all these nasty things start happening.
Yeah.
I think that there are these very unevolved spiritual entities out there that are attracted to negative energy, and they will actually look for conflict and hatred and anger, and that actually attracts them. That's almost like a food to them.
Yes, I agree. I've heard that many times over and over, that the more emotion that is involved, the more they're attracted to that. They feed off of that.
Exactly, and they have to continue to increase the fear level, because it produces more of the type of energy they're looking for. Mm-hmm. So when you're getting really scared by something you're getting freaked out by what's happening, there's a good possibility that that's a negative energy out there that's just enticing you to do that. Mm-hmm. By the same token, if you live in positive energy and you're always looking for the best in people, you're always very upbeat, you're always very compassionate, you'll attract certain energies that are attracted to that energy as well, to that positive energy.
Yeah.
And it'll just enhance that feeling and your abilities to act in a positive way in this world.
Well, I think what you're saying, actually, I believe, are what I refer to as laws of the universe, or laws of God's laws, basically. That if you basically make your own world, if you're a person who is happy at heart and you treat other people the way that you want to be treated, the majority of the time you're going to get that back, and probably more. And there is occasional, I refer to sharks, they'll chew you up and spit you out and then complain that you didn't even taste good. Why did they even bother with you? Waste their time. But those are not the rule. Those are the exception to the rule. And the majority of the time it is you personify your world, and then your world comes back to you again. So I totally agree with what you're saying.
But remember, Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. He wasn't saying it's something you're going to experience once you die, or it's going to come someday. He said it's at hand. So I think what he was saying is that we create our own heaven and hell right on Earth. So we don't ever have to really go anywhere. We just have to change our perceptions. And you can change heaven into hell or hell into heaven just by doing that.
Well, I have done a lot of research on your ability to create your own world. I don't know if have you ever heard of the teachings of Abraham? You familiar with that?
Not so much. I've read a lot about Neil Donald Walsh's Conversation with God series, and he goes into a lot of that idea of creating your own reality. And so I think that there's a kind of a collective wisdom out there that works around this idea of created realities, and you see it in a lot of different writers, different authors nowadays.
Well, there's also physical evidence in the sense that, I mean, at the very minimal level, but there is physical evidence that the words that we speak, even thinking, even what we think, can actually have an effect on our surroundings, specifically on water. And since our body has so much water in it, then our thoughts and our words can actually affect that. Have you ever heard of Masaru Emoto?
Yes, in fact, he did a presentation at our church.
Oh, wow. I would love to meet that man. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, that's an amazing man. Amazing. So he showed you the water crystals?
Yeah, I heard about it. I didn't get a chance to see him when I was out of town, but it was. I've heard a little bit about what he does, and it is really interesting stuff. I've seen documentaries and things like that. So
it is absolutely astounding what, when he takes water and blesses it or water and curses it, and the results after they take the pictures of the water just flash frozen are just absolutely amazing. The geometrical figures that come out, and they're beautiful. They look almost like diamonds, and each one is its own unique shape. It's like there's not two snowflakes that are the same kind of thing. It's that type of thing, and the stark difference between the water that is cursed versus the water that is blessed. What a difference! What a difference! And so, if you translate that into our bodies, well, our bodies are 75-80% water. I've heard our minds are upwards of 90% water. So if your words and your thoughts have an effect on water, and your body's a majority water, there's your evidence right there that you can actually speak your own existence. You can speak yourself into health. You can speak certain things, and they will come to pass.
I know you can certainly speak health into your life and sickness. I've seen evidence of both of that, and I've seen people make themselves, die basically because they just expected to. They just said, "This is what I'm going to do," and they just talked themselves into their own death. Yeah. So I do believe there's a lot of power in the spoken word, and you do have to be careful what you say. There is the sponsoring thoughts that can, you don't really know why you believe the things you believe and why your life is the way it is, because you have a set of beliefs that you carry with you from childhood, such as, I'm not good enough, I can't do it, nobody's going to like it. And as a result, you basically manifest these things in your life because you've already said that this is what is true. So it's
hard to break that. It's very hard, so deeply rooted.
My friend, who's the hypnotherapist, he also deals with women, works with women who are who want to have children, but they can't. They've been trying for years and years. They've gone through all of the different medical procedures, and he works with them in terms of do they feel they're really ready to be a mother and stuff. And he has like a 65% success rate. He's found that once these women break through some of these blocks, they become pregnant very quickly, and which is I think the medical success rate is like 35%, and he's getting like a 60-65% success rate, which is amazing. Because all he's doing is just working with their perceptions of themselves and explaining to them that why there's blockages, why they don't want to be a mother. Maybe they don't, they don't think they can be, or whatever it is that's holding them up subconsciously. So, the spoken word means a lot.
Well, while we're in the subject of subconscious now, because Michael had brought this up earlier, have you had experience with UFOs?
Yes, I actually have.
Can we get into that? Because that's another area that I believe has a direct impact upon our lives. Can you share with me what kind of experience you've had?
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with a gentleman named Stan Romanak.
I've heard the name, but not familiar. No.
Yeah, he's a multiple abductee. He's a local gentleman here. I was asked by my publisher to co-write a book with him, And so I had to spend a lot of time around him, go through his photographic evidence, all the different things that had happened to him while I wrote this book. And one time he was giving a lecture down here at the Auraria campus here in downtown Denver. And during the break, my son and I went outside and to take it was about a 15-20 minute break, and we saw a series of lights overhead. These were like orbs of light, about the size of your fist, and they were spinning very quickly, maybe 50, 100 feet overhead. So this is something that's right above us. And I was watching this thing for several minutes. I had no idea, what is this? It's not balloons, it's not a bird, it's not remote-controlled airplanes. And it spun, and it was amazing because these lights would get very bright on one part of the circle, and then they would completely fade to invisible on the other side of the circle. And they'd come back into full view again, and they would spin very fast. And what I thought this was, and my impression was that this was a display of the manipulation of energy, so that some entity somewhere, maybe above us, somebody we couldn't see, was manipulating this energy from using a technology source that we can only begin to imagine. And it was a fascinating experience. It was really the only UFO experience I've ever had, but it led me to the conclusion that we are being visited, that these entities are there, and sometimes they do interact with us. They're not trying to invade us or take us over or anything, but they are trying to make themselves known to us incrementally until we're at a point where I think they're ready to we're ready for them to reveal themselves. And this was all part of that. So that's what I look at. That's the way I look at that experience, as just them letting us know we're here, and just someday we will let you know. When you're ready, we will be here.
And did he share with you his personal experiences of being abducted multiple times?
Oh yeah, it's all in the book. Messages, I think the name of the book is, and I worked on it for about a year with him. Went through all of his evidence. All kinds of different things. It was really quite interesting. I still to this day am not sure what to make of it. But it was a fascinating experience, and
does he say that it was voluntary or involuntary?
I think most of it was involuntary. My impression, he didn't want to have this stuff happen to him. In fact, he said that he was a skeptic himself before this began happening. And then, of course, he changed his mind rather quickly once he became involved.
It's kind of hard to be a skeptic when it's happening to you.
But there was some issues. It was hard for him quite often to accept this. A lot of times he had a lot of physical maladies as a result of it, things of this nature. And like I said, I'm still not 100% sure what I believe about this entire situation with Stan. I felt that the guy was being upfront with me. I thought he was being honest, and certainly I believe that he believes these things are happening, and I can't explain a lot of what happened. I mean, he would get pictures like he took at a party, and just pictures of friends, and then as you took the picture into Photoshop and brought up the brightness and the contrast, you could see a little creature in the background watching.
Wow. Wow.
Whoa, what are you going to do with them? I mean, he's not even looking for these things, and they just kind of show up in his life. And, it's spooky, but it's also fascinating at the same time, because it's like, wow, where do these things come from? Why are they picking on him, of all people? And that's the question he always asks me, is why are they doing this to me? I don't want to do this, and they just keep doing it to me. So
UFOs are one of the subjects that we speak about quite a bit, and I have found that it's like 50-50. Some people actually enjoy doing it, and some people don't want to have anything to do with it. I have a personal friend of mine who, like you said about Stan, I don't know, I wasn't there with him, but I can tell you when he tells me about it, his whole demeanor changes. His face flushes, his skin changes color. He believes 100% whatever happened to him. So something is absolutely going on. This is more than just a bad dream or a daymare. And to my friend and his wife, it happened to them while they were driving in their car during the daytime and went into the nighttime. It spanned multiple hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lost time is a very common element of these things. I do believe, unfortunately, that a lot of people have kind of gotten involved in this whole discussion that have come up with some ideas that are very bizarre and very difficult to accept. Mm-hmm. And I think they've kind of taken away from the real science of it. So as a result, there's people like that they've made ufology almost a religion to them.
Yeah.
And they're to the point where you can't rationally discuss things with them, because if you disagree with them, they get just furious.
Oh yes. Michael has a couple of friends that are of the Christian nature that are like that.
Yeah. Guys, I'm back, and I do have a couple of friends like that, and I sometimes wonder if that's not the problem that we might have on nights like tonight. And I do want not to break into the conversation and take us off topic, but I know there's some morons who are in the chat room who thought that they're protected behind all these proxies and iPredator's a big joke, and you have no idea who you're screwing with. You just don't. So we have traced you. We got your screen names. Believe me, we could learn a lot from your screen names. Just like you idiots trying to post everyone's personal information in the chat rooms, not a problem, because we're going to fight you back with it. And I'll tell you what, some of you, when we do get you, and we will get you, there's going to be charges pressed on you, just so you know. So I hope you've enjoyed your night, and I hope you've had your fun. But that's why I got off for a minute here. We have traced your IPs, and you will be hearing from the proper authorities. I mean, Rascala, it gets me because this has happened before, and, we always set examples with these idiots, these morons, and they don't learn. They come back for more, and they do, the stupidity that we have to deal with. And this is one of the reasons why I'm going to leave Blog Talk and take the show somewhere else. And from now on, there will be no Blog Talk chat room. From now on, if you want to chat, you come over to LateNightInTheMidlands.com. That's where the chat room will be open, where we have control and we can't get flooded by idiots who want to distract the truth. And this is allowed. I mean, it's ridiculous. So I just want to let people know what I was dealing with and why I had to be silenced here momentarily. But, Rascala, posting people's personal info in the chats and, talking, Lucifer's this and, Jesus is this and that. And, these are the uneducated people who are going to at some point be calling the shots for us. I mean, are you kidding me? What an uneducated society we have. I mean, for the most part. I mean, parents, please stay home and teach your children. Stop letting the streets raise them. I mean, it's disgusting. It really is. But I had to get that out. Yeah.
That's by design. It's sad that we have to put up with that nonsense. But
it is.
They're gonna, when you have a rude awakening, which is what you're about to have, you guys that have got Michael upset. I wouldn't want to be one of you that gets Michael upset, because he's not one of those who just gets upset and doesn't do anything. He's one of those that gets upset, and then you're going to find him in your face.
No, I take action. I don't take this lightly. I mean, goofing around is one thing. I know that there's jokesters out there, but this is organized. These are a group of idiots who I would love to meet in person so I could smack the living shit out of each one of them. But these are people who they gather and they go around and they attack all these shows. I mean, it's been going on for a long time. Blog Talk can't seem how to manage it. They're too busy taking in the dollars from everybody, and so here we have this problem that's ongoing, and it's sickening to me. And if you think iPredator's a joke, I have news for you. You're going to find out differently, and you can tell your little buddies about that too. But it is irritating, Rascala, and it will be dealt with. I could promise that. So,
well, before you started talking about that, Jeff and I were talking about the aliens and the parts that they were playing in our lives. and how Jeff feels they're incrementally introducing themselves. I seem to think that and I think Jeff agrees with me. I think they've been here for a very, very, very long time. I don't think if you start hearing news about an alien attack, I would be extremely suspicious, because our history records, as far back as we can, even in the pyramids, there are pictures of jets, helicopters, flying saucers. All this stuff has been going on for a very, very long time. If they wanted to do something, they would have done it a long time. If they wanted to attack us, quote, attack us per se, that would have happened quite some time ago. They wouldn't have allowed us to get to the point where we've got nuclear weapons, for Pete's sake, and we have all kinds of laser equipment that can knock down their flying saucers. So they wouldn't have waited till now. So if you hear about a alien invasion, I promise you, the odds are it's not what they say it is.
Right.
And you also got to remember that you're dealing with civilizations that have the ability to transcend, to cross the vast distances between planets. So their technology is so far ahead of ours that even with our nuclear weapons, I doubt if we could really scare them too much. It's kind of like a modern soldier being taken on by someone from the Revolutionary War. They have a weapon, but they're not particularly scary.
Well, it's the point being is that if they wanted to make an attack, they certainly wouldn't. I mean, clearly they are more intelligent than we are. I mean, I think that that argument, I think, is settled. So if they were going to just attack us, an alien attack, I don't think they would have waited till we have this much technology under our belt. They would have done it a long time ago and then kept us under their control during that whole period. So, and that's my point. I keep hearing about, and I also have read articles, Carol, and I can't think of her last name right now, who was told, if you hear of an alien attack, it's bogus. And this New World Order that wants to be introduced into existence, this would be a classic excuse for them to do it, because it's like when we went to war, when we went to Afghanistan. I mean, if you look at September the 8th or September the 9th, we're Americans, big deal, blah, blah, blah. September the 11th, all of a sudden, everybody's waving flags and we're getting ready to go to war, we're all patriotic, blah, 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 blah. So if that were to happen to the entire planet, I think they would play that card and everybody be waving their flags. Yeah, we're Earthlings and we're all going to bind together and we're going to kill the aliens. And that would be, okay, well, here's your new government. That kind of thing. We talk a lot about the New World Order as well.
I see that.
That's one of the things we talk about.
Yeah, hey guys, we're up for a break. Let me take a break and then we'll come back. And Jeff, will you? It's unbelievable. Where are these people when we're talking about the New World Order? It's like they're quick to jump and attack Jesus. I mean, like, the man hasn't gone through enough. He died for you. That ain't enough? And it's ridiculous. But anyways,
I'm only laughing because of the analogy. The rest of it is very sad. If they really understood what their future is, and all they're doing is playing right into the hands of the people who are manipulating them, they have no clue. They don't know that they don't even know. They just think they know, but they don't have a clue.
Oh, I know it. It's sad. But Jeff, if there's anything else that you care to get into, any information you'd like to get out, I want to give you a chance to do that. And I want to thank you for putting up what was probably one of the most unprofessional shows you've ever had to be on. And I do apologize for that.
No doubt about it.
Well, we don't have the resources of, say, a Coast to Coast. Believe me, I wish I had 5 producers getting rid of people like that, but I don't. So I had to deal with it. I apologize.
Well, that's no problem. It's been a lot of fun. I would ask people if they're interested in learning more. They could go to my website at ourcuriousworld.com, and I think they'll find things there of interest, I hope. And I also have another website called questforspirit.org, where I talk about reincarnation, spirituality, and religion. And I have a little email link on there. They can send me an email if they want, and I usually respond if it's a serious email. And I would just encourage people to check it out, see what they think.
Okay, well, I thank you, and we do have you linked up on LateNightInTheMidlands.com, and I promise to get you back for a more professional format the next time, provided you will ever come back on this show again.
I may be having to leave the country here. So, all right, well, thanks a lot, guys. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, Jeff. Thank you very much. You know, Ruscala, really, it is, first off, I have them linked up over on LateNightInTheMidlands.com, and it really is. It's sad, Ruscala, that normally I just ignore them and I don't let them bother me, and I'll give out a number, and I'm going to give it out again while I'm at it. It's 215-742-0710. That was one of the prankers. I guess he could take the bulk for his 65 hairy buddies. But it's sad, Ruscala, that we have to deal with that kind of thing. And it always happens when we're talking about the afterlife, Jesus, things like of that nature. That's when they come. It's like I think God maybe he sends them there because they need a little Jesus in their life. What do you think?
If they're having a problem with that, then they should be looking at themselves in the mirror. Because if you can accept that somebody was here a long time ago that tried to set this place back the way that it should have been originally, did his best, and then was literally tortured to death, and you make fun of that, I see no comedy at all in any of that, and it's very sad because you're missing out a very, very important spiritual part of your life. You're missing out a very important part of life, period. Part of the experience here is a physical experience, and then there's how many times have you heard we're not just physical beings, we are spiritual beings. So we have the physical experience and we have the spiritual experience. And as I am getting older and learning more about the spiritual experience, it is amazing. It really is. It's amazing. And to continue in the behavior that would detriment that in any way, I don't understand why somebody would want to do that. And the behavior that those people, those kids were showing tonight, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You guys are missing out a very important part of your life that you don't even know you're missing. It's like somebody who's never tasted chocolate, and so you won't ever know what you're missing because you never be able to taste that as long as you continue in these juvenile actions that you're doing.
And, and Ruscala, we can only hope. I know the last time we went and persecuted some of the bunch, and it hasn't happened in a long time, but the last bunch that did that, a few of them got the taste of consequences, something that they obviously don't learn at home. And we can only hope that it's kids. I mean, if there's adults acting this way, my Lord, there's your zombie apocalypse. But it's sad.
If their age is of adults, that doesn't mean that their mentality is of adults. Age and mentality don't necessarily sync with each other. You can have somebody who's 30, 40 years old still acting like a teenager. That's just how they are.
And here's what some of them don't understand. I mean, this is why they're so stupid, and I'm going to be blunt. It's just plain out dumbasses, okay? We're in a time in our lives here on this planet when the government is tracking everything you say or do. Let's not forget the NSA, but these idiots don't know about the NSA because they're too busy playing Donkey Kong or something. I mean, so they have no idea that not only is the government tracking everything, but anybody could track. All you need is a screen name, and you'll be surprised how far that'll take you. Doesn't matter how many proxies. All I need to do is get one of you pricks, just one of you, and I could get to the whole bunch of you. So, I mean, that's how stupid they are. And what happens when they do this to a nutcase one of these days? What happens when they do it to a nutcase and, Jeffrey Dahmer type guy who starts just drooling at it and sharpening his machete and decides he wants to go on a few road trips? I mean, you really got to be careful. You never know who you're playing with.
That's right. Absolutely
That's all I'm saying. That's not a threat. That's just a warning. I mean, we're trying to wake you up here.
That's a fact. You never know who you're dealing with. I'll share something with you. This happened here in West Palm Beach about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now. One of my favorite things was to go by Wendy's and get their chili. I would have chili almost every day. I would have chili right around the same time, right around 12:30, because I was always out on the road doing service calls, things like that. And this one particular day, the service call took me a little bit longer than I expected, and I ended up showing up at this Wendy's about a half an hour late. Well, thank God that I was a half an hour late, because a half an hour before that, some man walked in and just started shooting people. Bam, 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 right off the bat. I would have been there right around the time that man would have been there. So, yes, things can happen. You don't know. You have no idea.
Yeah, these idiots that are in the chat room or skull, these are the type of idiots that grow up to be like that, because they have no guidance. They have no guidance. Their family, they don't know what it's like to sit at a table with the family and have dinner. They don't know what it's like to have a parent ask them how their day was. What did you learn today in school? Because the chances are most of these kids weren't even in school all day. They were out at their buddy's basement smoking pot while the parents are upstairs smoking crack. And it's really depressing. I mean, come on. This is what happens when babies have babies. Yeah. And this is one of the problems that we've had. We've gone through the crack era, and now it's gone beyond that. I can't even set my mind on some of the stuff these contraptions they'll take to get high. But, I mean, this is what we got. We got parents who are getting high and not taking care of their kids. They're just, it's terrible. People, believe me, whether you believe or not, Jesus isn't a bad thing. You know, if anything, it might help you a little bit. You might want to study it. I read things I don't believe too, but, it makes me think about it. I mean, you need some structure.
My personal opinion, I don't have evidence to back this up, but my opinion that what Jesus was trying to tell people, and very similar to what Jeff had said, is that the kingdom of God is in you and around you. It's here right now. But the problem is it cannot become the kingdom of God because of all the hatred and the anger and the stupidity that some people just exhibit, like these young people today. But I believe that what really got Jesus knocked off, so to speak, was when he was in the temple and he overturned the tables of the only time that you ever hear about Jesus, the man, becoming violent, reportedly very violent, was when he came in contact with the bankers of the day. And what do we see today? We see that the bankers are the ones who are causing the problems today. The bankers are the ones who instill all these systems that these kids, which I think is kids, I may be wrong. These kids think that they're being smart. This is all propaganda and all perpetrated upon you, the kids. You don't even know you're being played and toyed with.
No, they're pawns. They got strings on their sleeves, and they have no idea. They're just, I mean, stupidity. When I was a kid, once in a while we would maybe open the phone book, pick out a funny name, funny last name, and maybe call and do a crank call. But, back then it was so easy. Nobody could trace you back. I mean, you'd have to call the phone company and have a tracer put on and blah, blah, blah. Nowadays, I wouldn't even think about it. I mean, even with your Skype, I know some of you think you're slick and use Skype. You can be traced, I'm telling you, and I'm going to prove it. Some of these guys, that's the problem. You see what they do, but never when they get the spanking they need, does anybody witness that. So, but I'll be sure to report on it. But we're going to handle it. I mean, like we always have. That's why it just don't happen every night, because we take care of it. But these kids are so misguided. Like, Skull, I went into the store today. I went in a dollar store, right? I go in the store, and there's this woman, and she's got this little kid. Kid couldn't have been more than 3 and a half. And, I look at him, and I'm thinking, oh, what a cute kid. I come back to cash out, and here she is. She's calling them. Just let the little girl go run around wherever in the store she wants.
Oh, my God.
And when she's ready to check out, she's calling for her. And I'm thinking, you idiot. I mean, really? I mean, do you not know people will snatch up a child and the things that happen? And, I mean, this is it. When I was a kid, my mother didn't let me out of her sight.
In the blink of an eye,
you're coming with me.
Up a child. In the blink of an eye, Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible. Very irresponsible. You know what else bothers me that I see out there? These parents who allow their children, when I say children, 3 and 4 years old, 5, 6 years old, They've got iPads. They've got iPhones. They've got I can't think of the Nintendo Game Boy. You really need to do
all
some
that
research.
garbage.
Is the best thing. Do some research before you start giving your kids this stuff, because I'm telling you, it's not good for them. It's not good for them at all.
Yeah, my son-in-law says, I can't wait to get the new Xbox when it comes out. And I told him and showed him what the new Xbox is going to be about. And I told him, I said, well, you want to take some precautions, do this or that. Oh, I don't care. We got nothing to hide, he says. And I slapped my forehead, and I said, my God, man, do you not understand?
No,
I mean,
they don't.
you know, I got family who don't listen to this show and who don't pay attention. And it boggles my mind. When we get together, when family does get together, and I start talking about these things, I mean, they're all waiting for somebody else to call them out of the room. It's like they can't believe what I'm saying.
It's very uncomfortable. It is a very uncomfortable subject, but you know what? If you hide from it, doesn't mean that it's going to go away. That's the problem. Too many people have tried to hide from it for far too long, and guess what? Now it's in our face. We have no choice. I've said this before. You can no longer be a spectator, because to be a spectator is to be a traitor. You can no longer just sit back and do nothing, because we've reached the point now, we're at the boiling point where something is going to explode, and I don't doubt that it's going to happen very shortly. It's just, we're just being pushed beyond our limits.
Yeah. Well, you know,
look at what we're having to be put through. If you want to travel on an aircraft, oh my God, heaven help you if you want to go on an aircraft. Now they're doing it on the train as well, where they have TSA stops. I hear that they're doing, I don't remember what they're called, but they're basically roadblocks. Roadblocks in Alabama, wanting to take your DNA from you unwillingly, whether you like it or not. They're going to take your swab out of your mouth. Well, I've got nothing to hide. Don't you understand? You have everything to hide. You have your privacy to hide. Your private life is exactly that, private. You have been desensitized to understand that there is a degree of your life that should be private, should remain private, not open to the public. This nonsense of, well, I've got nothing to hide, I don't care, is exactly why we are where we are today.
Well, I can assure you this, and I mean this to God, I guess I'll be the example, but if I should ever get so lucky as to own private property again, if that should ever happen, and one of those drones fly over my property, I'm going to go and hunt, and I mean it. And, you know, whatever they got to do, let them do it. You know, somebody's got to do it. You know, it's going to happen one of these days. I'm seeing the drones here now, and it's pissing me off.
You're not alone. There's a lot of people who feel the same way. That there's no reason for those drones to be flying over the United. There's no reason for those drones. Period. They're just murder machines, is all they are. There's no other reason for them than to murder people. You know, whether they're going to murder you emotionally, murder you physically with their armed drones. You know, it doesn't make any difference.
Why do people think that they're testing these drones? They're testing these drones because what they are intended to be used for. When you and I stand up and say we had enough, they're going to be ready to launch these drones.
That's right.
And you know, I'm telling you,
they will be armed.
Yeah, because you know why? Because there's a lot of troops who wouldn't fire on the American people,
right.
And we've speculated about them using foreign troops to do it. They don't need to. You're allowing drones in your skies.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all they need. Boom, 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 boom. Couple bombs here, a couple bombs there. You know, oh, there's a guy who speaks out about the administration. Get him. You know, heat-seeking missile in the trunk. It's all over with. And no one's doing nothing now. Can you imagine when they start killing us off like that? I mean,
too late.
Then what are people going to do?
It's going to be too late. You know, it's going to be too late for all of those who said, "Oh my God, he was telling the truth about the guillotines. Oh my God, he was telling the truth about the boxcar with the shackles. Oh my God, they were telling us the truth about the FEMA camps." It's going to be too late for you people. That's why we're screaming now, because we realize that the time is so short, and that every passing day gets us one day closer to the inevitable. And the inevitable is martial law, people. That's really what it is. It's full and absolute control over your life, every part of your life. You're not going to be able to take a piss without them knowing about it. That's how much control that they want over us. And as long as we remain silent, it's as long as we allow them. Make no mistake, people, you and me as a mass and generally speaking, we are permitting this. You see, because it is us who has the power. All we need to do is come together. Once we come together under one unity, under one, I can't think of the word, goal, there's no stopping us. And you don't hear about the hundreds of thousands of people in Brazil, that so many people in Brazil that the police decided we better sit down with the people. They sat down with the people in Brazil. Hundreds of thousands, flooding the streets, of people in the streets.
And that's right. And what I worry about, Rascala, is, I don't doubt that most of our police, I could never see our military, firing on us. And I think they know that. I think for the most part that wouldn't happen. So, I worry when they do sit with us, will the drones start flying over? And that's why I don't like this drone thing. What have drones ever done? Name me any good that they've ever done.
Yeah. No.
You go in the Middle East and you tell a family whose kid was blown apart that drone did good. It was protecting them.
Oh, they try to hide the numbers of the innocent people that are killed by these drone attacks, especially in Pakistan. It's like they're ruthless in Pakistan. I don't understand that. They're absolutely ruthless in Pakistan. And they kill all these innocent people, and then they try to hide it. But it still comes out anyway.
Oh, and you know what? There was this woman who was on Coast the other night, and that's how I seen her, came across my news feed. And I checked into her. She actually has a story of a man who was sent into Iraq the first time when they went in. And this poor guy, he gets shot down, and they make up this big story. He gets captured. He knew too much, so they didn't want to take the chance of him speaking. So they didn't go back to save him. They didn't go back to get him. They never went back to get him. He lived about 12 years before he finally died hiding out. Even Saddam was looking for him. And they come back the day after, and they give the family a story about how he died. Here's his ashes. Total BS story to hide the fact that they left one of their own there to die. And it's sickening. And this happens a lot more than we know about.
I'm afraid it does. And I'm afraid the evidence is there because, I spoke with Billy Vaughn the other Saturday night. And Billy Vaughn is the parent of Aaron Vaughn, who is one of the members of SEAL Team 6. And Billy testified on the air that, first of all, SEAL Team 6 is supposed to be a hush-hush thing. You're not supposed to even know about them. And who outed them? Mr. Biden himself, our vice president outed them. And his son called him and his wife and said, you got to take all the information about you guys off of the social networks. There's a lot of chatter out there. Our lives are in danger right now. All because of this moron that basically, let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. And 90 days later, they're all dead. All of them are dead. As if that isn't bad enough, they have a Muslim priest curse the ashes that are being received at the air base in Afghanistan so they can fly them back to the United States. Curse the remains of these people before they come back. So don't tell me they have respect and they care for you, because they don't. Absolutely, you're less than a pawn to them. There's so many of you out there who are of this mentality, like these kids earlier. You just have no clue. Yeah, exactly. You're more of a burden to them. Unless you could serve their dirty deeds, you're a burden to them. I know I'm a burden to them. I'm not as big as Alex Jones and all those shows, but you don't have to be. You could be somebody in a Walmart store who looks at your husband and says, this government's, effed up. That's all it takes. So you're going to get put on a list. They don't want you talking. It's becoming, it's communism. I mean, it's becoming, it's like China. I dare you to go on them streets and start screaming that, the government sucks. That's how fast you wind up with a bullet in you. You can't do that here if there's a Secret Service man around. It's a felony. If you were to
look at JFK.
And there's a Secret Service man around, they could get you with a felony for speaking. Okay? That's what happened to freedom of speech. Who cares what it is that you're saying? My point is, whether you agree or not with the administration or whoever it is, what happened to the freedom of you being able to speak out against anything? It's a felony. A felony, people. I can't even. How many people died so that we could have freedom of speech? So we could express ourselves? So we could have differences of opinions? How many millions of people have died serving our country so that we can have those freedoms? And then this is done to us, and people just take it like a grain of salt. I can't take it like a grain of salt. I'm sorry. It is not a grain of salt to me. It's a very, very, very serious problem. I may not agree with whoever this protester is, and they may not use the right words, but they still got the right. They still have the right to voice their opinion. Not anymore. Not if there's a Secret Service man around.
That's true, and you know, and I've said before, it's like anything with you know, your right to own a firearm comes responsibility, and
right.
You know, your right to free speech, that comes with responsibility too. I mean, you don't walk into a gang territory and tell the gang to kiss your ass. I mean, you know, there's certain places you want to watch what you say. I mean, just for your own safety. But I mean, yeah, if I want to tell you that the government is fraudulent and that they're, you know, they really want to delete humans from the planet, I should have the right to say that, especially when I could back it up. It's not. I mean, I don't think people should be able to go out there and spread fear with lies. Okay, maybe there's something else you could do about that. I mean, I don't know. I guess that's part of free speech, is it? But then it should fall into journalism as well. I mean, that's like people who make up wild claims and get everyone, you know, like the white hat thing. Again, I mean, everybody sat back and relaxed. They thought, oh, the white hats are coming. You know, I think there should be some responsibility that comes with it. But you're right. I mean, freedom of speech is done in this country. I mean, yeah, you can speak it, but they're recording it, and you're on a list. Everybody's on a list. Don't think you're not on a list.
If Obama was speaking somewhere and you happened to be there and you screamed out, "You're a fraud!" you just committed a felony. Think about that. Think about that. You just committed a felony. Even though you're speaking the truth, you just committed a felony.
Oh, it'll be like North Korea, right? Like when the president there dies, you better cry or we're going to kick your ass or worse. Yeah, right. You know?
And you will cry because if you don't, we're coming to get you. So it'll give you incentive to cry.
Well, yeah, yeah, exactly. They want to control your emotions. The difference is North Korea does it with threats of violence, and the United States does it with fear-mongering. I mean, you know, they want you to know. They're right in your face. They want you to know they're recording you. They want you to know this stuff. That's why it's getting out. They want you to know. They want you to fear and hide in your cave and say, well, I better just shut up. No, you don't shut up. I don't care. Hey, they want to throw me in prison for speaking my mind. Well, I'm not going to like it much, but you know what? Jesus went through a lot worse than I did. So if that's what I got to do, that's what I got to do.
My point is, it's not just speaking your mind. This is how bad it's become. It's speaking the truth. What I said earlier, if you were at a rally where this man who they called the president was, and he was speaking, and you yelled out, "You are a fraud." Now that's true. We know that that's true. We have a sheriff who is a former federal agent who spent 6 months trying to prove that all the documents that this administration has turned in are in fact good documents and they're viable and accurate. When what he found out was that every one of them is fraudulent. So that we know if you say fraud, that is true. But you could be put in jail, prison, because it's a felony.
And he's being silenced too. I mean, they're going after him with everything they got. I'm surprised they haven't tried to kill him. Oh, they did, didn't they?
Yeah, several times already.
Yeah, he had a bomb that was delivered to him. I mean, this is the kind of craziness It's ridiculous. This is what's happened to whistleblowers, real whistleblowers. They're getting knocked off. Scientists who are coming up with, they figure something out, and they don't want us to know about it, and they're knocking them off. There's a lot that they're not telling us. But you know what? I told somebody today, she asked me, how I knew somebody wasn't on the up and up. And I said, all you have to do is look at his sources and who he's gathering with. And that right there should raise the red flag. I mean, just look at what Obama's done. Look at what's happening in this country. And you shouldn't need me to tell you. You should be, every time you walk out your door, you should, yeah. You should say, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, an honest question to everybody who's listening. Do you honestly believe that we're better off now than we were, say, 10 years ago, 13 years ago, before 2001? Do you honestly think that we're better off now, emotionally, financially, spiritually, physically? Do you think that we're better off now than we were 13 years ago, before 2001? And what has happened since 2001? It has progressively become worse. This is why I constantly go back to 2001, because 2001 was the hinge. That was the turning point where the majority of our rights began to be literally flushed down the toilet at that point. We had the Patriot Act that came out right after 9/11, which stripped us of so many things. And then it was just one thing after another of the constant stripping of our rights, while we're all trying to make our relationships work, get our finances together, make our families, support our families, go to work. While we're doing all this, this is the game that they're playing in the background because they want to do away with us. We are a burden to them. There are too many of us to control now. They realize that, and so the end game is to reduce the number. We are their herd to do with what they want.
And you know what, Rascal, not for nothing, but I'll bring it up. I don't know if you remember, but I was talking to you about a job that I was inquiring in, and that it looked like I was going to get hired, and looked good, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I had to fill out this DHS section, and I just got a letter yesterday saying that this has nothing to do with their decision not to hire me. But look, 3 interviews, pretty much handshake, hey, we're waiting for this to come back, and then we'll get you started kind of thing. And I get this letter, and it says, well, we had some questions about your background check. So again, after I cleared it again, apparently, and they said that they're not at liberty to share it with me. So now they don't even have to tell me what they found and why they won't hire me. So what happened? The DHS sent some stuff back, and that's it. So, again, no job. They know I'm trying to fund. And I know some people say, I don't think so. You're not a big enough show. I've been around for almost 6 years now. I say it like it is. I not only say it like it is, but last year I traveled to 10 states. We did that 10 state in 7 days. I put cards and flyers, took videos and posted them up. And we did a ton of stuff. So it's not like I just sit here and speak on the mic. I mean, I'm active. I pass stuff out right here in the city. Whenever we go to the ocean front in Charleston, I bring stuff. I pass it out. I wake people up everywhere I go. If I'm in line at a store and I hear somebody say, oh, my God, the gas prices, man, I will get up and I will start telling them what's going on. I mean, that's just who I am. And so it's not just on the show. I do it 24 hours a day. I mean, I'm doing this stuff in my sleep. And so, I don't know. And then another place was talking to me about a job, and, I've called him back 3 times now. He wanted a website link. I gave it to him, and I don't hear back from him no more. What's going on? So I don't know. So I'm doing my best to fund things. I hope people will help. Just having a hell of a time for some reason. I don't know. Rascala, before I did this show, I never had a problem. I mean, I could quit a job and a week later have another job just like that. Mm-hmm. And boy, I'll tell you, this show, it has become a burden in some areas. But I try not to let it discourage me, and I keep moving forward. And I've got positive people in my life like Ruscala and Peter Kling and Autumn and Adana and Bruce and and others. And I just too many to mention. So it keeps me going, man. I'll have once in a while I have that where I just throw my hands up and just want to say to hell with it all.
Right.
But then the next day I sleep on it, and I wake up the next day and I say, no, I'm not going to let them win. I'm not.
Well, for those who are out there thinking that the government isn't so bad, I want to read you some of the things that are in this health care bill coming up, just so that you have an idea what's being literally shoved down our throat. We have no choice in this. They're going to shove this down our throats. If you don't buy their insurance, they're going to fine you. Okay? Let me find the one that just really. Well, first of all, if you're an employer, I'm an employer. I have 3 people that work with me. If you are an employer and you don't insure using Obamacare, you are required to be audited. How's that for no privacy anymore? Okay. How about on page 30 in section 123, there will be a government committee that decides treatments or benefits that you get. So you're going to leave your health care to a bunch of strangers who know nothing about you. All they're going to do is look at numbers. Oh, that one's too expensive. Just let him die or them die or whatever. This is how your government considers you. How about this one? On page 59, lines 21 through 24, the government will have direct access to your bank accounts for the elite funds transfer. In other words, if you are if you have something going on and you have to be treated for something, they're going to take your deductible, bam, right there on the spot, right out of your bank account, pal, boom. Whether you got the money or not doesn't matter. They're going to get theirs. And it just goes on and on and on. There are so many things in this health care bill that would literally make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up straight. It is absolute tyranny that what they're trying to do to us, yet people don't have a clue. Don't have any idea. And how do you find out about it? By tuning in to places like Late Night in the Midlands and listening to people like Michael Vera and the other hosts that are on this network. You tune into this network, that's where you find out about information like this, because we are constantly searching the internet, looking for information that's going to help change our lives in a positive way. Because let me tell you something.
And we're real.
Hope and change. Is that not what this person got elected on? I almost said something bad. Hope and change, right? And he did give you hope and change. The hope is all gone, and pal, he's got all of your change. There is nothing left at this point.
That's right. I can't argue with that, Ruscala. Absolutely. Right now, this is all I got. So, it is what it is. So it either works or it don't.
Anybody out there who has any idea what's going on, I don't understand how you can sit back and not become active, take action. Call your senators, call your representatives, call your state legislator. Start filling out petitions. This is not going to get any better, people. It's just not. I'm sorry. Anybody who tells you this is going to get any better, there's an old saying about insanity. Insanity is doing the same thing day in and day out, and expecting some kind of new future out of that. It's going to be the same thing. It's just going to be the same thing, except in our case, instead of being just the same thing, it's going to be worse, because that is the plan. We've already presented documents that show what they have planned for us, and it's not nice.
Oh,
it's not even supposed to be nice.
No, it's not. It's not nice. It's not nice at all. And like I say, Ruscala, that's all. I've never done this for money. I've never done this to get rich or famous. If I was on that route, then I wouldn't be telling you the things I'm telling you, because I'd be afraid that I wouldn't be next in line to fill in for George Norrie.
Yeah.
I don't care about that. The hell with all that. I'm hoping that one day a radio station will come out that really wants the truth, that really wants real people, not scripts that producers put together for them, and real people who come on and speak about real issues, and expand the mind while we're at it. When a radio station comes out like that, then I'll be at home. But, I love doing this, Rascala, and it's not easy. It's not easy.
I know.
It takes a lot of time to prepare for these shows. People don't realize it, so they try it themselves.
It is a lot of work, and I have been one of the people who has been telling others out there that you should look at the loyalty of this man. You should consider how much work he does. He lives, breathes, poops, everything is the station to him, and he does it as a service. He's not in it for the money. There could have been sponsors already that could have floated this financially, but he would have had to cave in. He would have had to allow them to let him give him control. Let me back up a minute. They would have had control.
I've had offers.
They would have had control over what he would have to say to you, and that's exactly what he's fighting. He wants no control so that he can give you the raw truth, let you sort through it, instead of being filtered by a financial supporter who says, no, we don't want you to go there, or if you go there, you can only say this or that or the other. This way, you're getting the whole story. You're not getting part of the story or not the story at all in some cases. That's got to be worth something. That's got to be, to me, it's priceless. Where else can you find out about it? How does somebody pay for cable and listen to all this freaking propaganda coming across, but yet they won't subscribe to a radio station that's giving you truth that can help you with your life day in and day out? That part I just can't come to grips with.
I don't know. Rascala, it goes back to I don't ask people to do anything I wouldn't do myself. And, back when I was a teenager and a young man, I listened to Art Bell. I listened to him from like 1989 right up till he retired. And guess what? I subscribed. I couldn't always afford it, but I did it because I was always afraid that show would be gone. And now it is. Art left, and I just don't enjoy what it is now. So I supported it. And now there's nothing out there I'd rather support than this, obviously. So that's where my resources go. And, hey, again, it is what it is, and it always will be as long as you help us. And so Here we are, Rascala, but we're about out of time, my friend.
Well, thank you for letting me rant a little bit and talk to Jeff tonight. I appreciate it, and I always appreciate the privilege of being with everybody every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on the Red Pill Reality Show. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Wish you a good night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Explore some past lives, and all of these things cumulatively convince me that life is just one experience among many that we have as part of being human, and not the only one. So there's a lot going on out there, and all of it together tells me that there's a lot to come after we go too.
Now, what does Scripture say about reincarnation? I believe that there's some religions that believe in it, and others that don't. Can we pull anything out of there that might support reincarnation?
Well, it's interesting. In my research, I found out that the early church, especially the Gnostic churches, did believe in reincarnation. It was a major element of their belief system. And then there was, of course, this battle between them and the more traditional church, and the Gnostics lost. So all references to reincarnation were largely purged from religious texts after that. Even though we still see some inklings of it here and there. Remember when Jesus was walking the earth, people said he is Elijah, come back. And so there was always these little hints that reincarnationist thought had made its way into even the Jewish beliefs of the time. And you really don't hear that much. It was very forcefully repressed by the church at large, because if you incorporate reincarnation into your theology, then there's not a one decision you have to make, either heaven or hell, believe it or not. You come back again and again, and that's obviously not going to work if you're trying to convince people they need to make a decision for Christ today. Because they can say, well, why can't I just wait for another time when it's more interest to me? And so you can understand why they would want to repress it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess there's quite a few people on this planet who, if they knew for sure that they could just end it now and come back and start over, per se, then they might actually take that road. And, my wife and I were talking about that last night, and I told her, I just want to know. I want the answers. I want to know how we got here, why we're here, who...
The thought of our own mortality is kind of a scary and fascinating subject to us at the same time, and it's something that we all share as human beings. Is one day we will be, finding out for ourselves what happens. And I'm a person that I don't want to wait until I die to find out. I want to know, at least have some idea of what might happen before then. And so I think there are things that do give us some clues. And if a person takes the time to really look at them, they can discover a lot of things about what might be awaiting us on the other side.
Absolutely. I've talked about this several times on this show. I mean, I had my own experiences that have convinced me that there's definitely another side to this story we call life. But, a lot of people haven't. And some people have, but they brush it off. They kind of debunk it themselves, and quickly, because they just don't want to believe in some of this stuff. And for me, it's more than just believing it. Believing it was one thing, but knowing it to be fact, really a whole nother ball game. And what type of evidence? I mean, what was the best evidence that you have run across as far as there being something on the other side, and even reincarnation? Maybe explain that a little bit.
Well, there's a number of ways to approach this. There's ghosts. I think the evidence for the paranormal is very strong if you take it collectively. I also had so many people in my life who had experiences with the paranormal. People just said, they don't talk about it unless you get them off by themselves and say, I remember years ago this happened. And so not only that, but from a scientific standpoint, I couldn't see why people were so quick to dismiss the idea that there was more after death, since we're made out of energy, and energy can't be destroyed. It just changes form. So from a scientific standpoint, it made sense rationally. Anecdotally, I knew a lot of people who had encounters or experiences with the other side. And then finally, the third part of that was reincarnation. I knew I had experiences from my own life that made me wonder why I had the interests as a young man that I had in terms of the military, Germany, things like that. And I started reading a little bit about reincarnation, and I did a hypnosis when I was put under, and went back to and moved into its next incarnation. And to me, that always made the most sense. I can understand people having that attitude where I don't want to move on. I want to stay in my house. I want to be around familiar things. And it can be scary. The unknown is a scary thing. And that's where faith comes in. You just have to have faith that God knows what he's doing, and that things will work out in the end.
And I've sometimes said this to some of my more religious friends is, if God would just show his face in the sky, this planet would come to a standstill quick. However, I think nowadays people would swear the government put an apparition up there, some kind of hologram. So I don't know if that would even work. No.
Sometimes even seeing is not believing. But spirituality tells us it's actually believing is seeing. It kind of works opposite. It's as you have faith and you move forward that you begin to perceive God in people, in things around you, in nature, and that's what we miss. We're trying to have some kind of an experience, but we miss the fact that life is an experience, and it's around us all the time. And sometimes we just have to stop and pay attention. Otherwise, we miss it.
Right, I agree. And, I also wonder about, there's spirits that can come back. I mean, people will get down in their life, maybe hit rock bottom, and there's somebody who had passed away, who was close to them, will come back and help them. And, but then there's other people who will never get visited no matter what happens. And, you got to wonder, is there rules? Is there, what goes on the other side? I mean, who makes the rules? Why can some spirits come back and others cannot? Like I had an experience. I hit rock bottom years ago, and my mother came back to me. And and I know a lot of people say it could have been a dream, it could have been this, but there was confirmation to that. So, I find it amazing, and that's an experience that I had that tells me, oh yeah, there's definitely something on the other side. But I wonder why some could come back and others cannot, and how long are they on the other side before they come back as, in a new life?
Well, you've got to remember that when you're talking about
who exactly is God, what is all this? What's the meaning of it all? And she asked me if I thought I could handle it. And I don't know if I could or not. I think I can. I feel like I could. I mean, I'm researching it. I want to know. So, I want to know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the answer is not as far away as you think. Some people are looking for some sort of extraordinary experience, to get the answer. And a lot of time it's actually within yourself. You just kind of get a sense that you're here temporarily, and there's more to it, and that you've got a reason for being here. And once you understand what that reason for being is, it makes life change a lot. All of a sudden, you're not just kind of wandering around wondering what to do next. You actually understand your purpose, and that everybody has a role to play in our spiritual development and evolution. And it makes for a very different perspective on life.
And I kind of wonder as to if we're going to have to come back again. I mean, why do we have to leave in the first place? These are like questions that I'd really like to get answers to. And, what happens to the people who have been horribly evil their whole lives? I mean, is there a different outcome for them? And, those kind of things. And why do we have ghosts? I mean, how come they haven't gone into the recycling period, if you will? Do we have any answers for any of that, or any theories at least?
Well, yeah, absolutely. As far as ghosts go, I believe that you're basically made up of a soul, and when you come into the world, into the flesh, you generate a personality along with a body. So those are your way of experiencing time and space. That's how you have experiences. Once you die, I believe that all returns back to the realm of spirit again. However, in some people, for whatever reason, that personality lingers on. Usually some place that's familiar to them, that they feel comfortable at. They have trouble accepting the fact that they're dead. They have trouble, or maybe they're afraid of God. They think they're going to be judged, and so they linger. And so basically what a ghost is just a personality, disembodied personality that's stuck. It just doesn't want to move on, and it'll stay there for a while. It could be a few months, a few years, a few decades, even centuries. But eventually, the personality will eventually move on and
Jeff, welcome back to Late Night in the Midlands. It's a pleasure to actually have you here. We had some issues last time.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, you bet. So what have you been up to? What's new?
Well, I am still pursuing the career as a novelist. I'm happy to announce I recently, I'm working on a trilogy. That's 2 of the 3 books have come out, and the next one is due later this summer. So things are going well.
Oh, good. So, well, let's get into this a little bit. Get into your background and your work. What got you going? I mean, what drove you to this, to write about these things and to research these these subjects?
Well, I've been interested in paranormal subjects ever since I was a kid, and I basically read about them for a long time. And when I began to pursue a career as a writer, I really didn't know what I wanted to write about. But you go back to what your interests are. What kind of things did you find fascinating when you were younger? And so I was just kind of gravitated towards the paranormal. And so as I write each one of these books, it allows me to do a lot of research into areas that I knew a little bit about, but then learned a lot more about as I did the research. And one book led to the next, and it's been a lot of fun ever since. Just trying to look at a different perspective on the paranormal. I consider myself someone who likes to ask the hard questions that a lot of believers don't like to be asked, and try to find other alternative answers for things. And there's not a lot of people out there who are playing both sides like that.
Right, and and I like that. That's what needs to be done. The hard questions have to be answered. Now, why do you suppose? Why is it so mysterious? This whole the ghost, the what happens after we die. I mean, nobody's ever come back and that we could prove to everybody and told us what happens. So why is you suppose such a mystery? Why aren't humans just programmed to know this? I wonder.
Well, I don't know. I think it's always this